back in it. We're back in it. Happy New Year, everybody. Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Kayleigh. I formerly was known as Kayleigh Kill, and now I am Kayleigh Carpenter. And I had a very long channel hiatus last year because I was getting married and my life was crazy and everything was a mess. And now I am getting back into doing things because I want to do them and not because I feel like I have to do them. And today's video is actually something that I am very excited about jumping back in with. We are going to be discussing Rise of Skywalker. Now, I want to immediately be clear. There will be spoilers, so if you have not seen the film yet, please do not watch. Second thing that I want to be clear about is that I enjoyed the movie. I know that most of the reviews up on YouTube are relatively negative towards the film, but I want to make sure that you know, if you're here for another crap fest, you're not going to get it from me because I actually genuinely liked the film. So I want to talk about the reasons why I liked it, and then I will touch on some things that I wished had been done better or differently. But overall, my experience was a very positive one, so yeah. Disclaimer, I'm allowed to like a thing and you're allowed to not like the thing, and we can agree to disagree on the thing. I do have a list of notes on my phone of things that I want to discuss, and so the first thing that I want to chat about is lightspeed jumping, because I enjoyed the scenes where Poe was lightspeed jumping. However, I did have a slight issue with that. So the only reason that I had somewhat of an issue with that scene is just in The Last Jedi, we watched Holdo jump to lightspeed through a ship and it exploded, right? So we get that. The only thing that didn't make sense, like I think that it was just for the aesthetics of doing it for the scene. It didn't make sense to me because every place that Poe was landing was surrounded by things that would explode, or if he lightspeed jumped, I would assume would break the ship. I don't know if there is like a set amount of things that a ship can break through before it actually breaks through the ship itself. But there was like one where it was just all trees, and then there was one where it was rocks. I don't know, like, and the reason that I think that he wasn't really breaking anything is because when he would lightspeed jump, you would see him kind of just disappear, and like for a split second, you still saw like the planet on which they were on, and nothing was broken. So that was a little bit weird to me. Again, I enjoyed the scene for the like aesthetics of it, but to stick with the storyline from the last movie didn't make as much sense. Speaking of jumping, I am going to be jumping all over this movie because all of my notes are not in order. So now we're going to talk about the Knights of Ren. I have been so excited to see the Knights of Ren on screen since The Force Awakens, when we saw that little like flashback that Rey had, or yeah, flashback, flash forward, whatever it was, where you see the fire and Kylo with the Knights of Ren. I was very excited. I've been very stoked to see them. And so seeing them on screen, I immediately was like, I'm here for it. This is exciting. I wish we had seen more fighting with them. I wish they had been in more scenes. I feel like they didn't really explain what the Knights of Ren were. They say it's the Knights of Ren, but they don't actually discuss what they are. The only reason that I'm aware of what they are is because I follow Star Wars lore outside of the films. Like, I also am interested in the books and I'm interested in the games. So for me, I knew what they were going into it, but for anyone else who just follows Star Wars through the films, I feel like that could have been explained a little better. I wish that I had seen more of them on screen, but I am very happy that we did get to see the Knights of Ren, so that is a plus, because I was starting to think we wouldn't get to see them at all, and like that flashback scene from Force Awakens was all we were gonna get. Let's just talk about this really quick, because ya girl is a Reylo supporter. If you don't know me, if you're watching this just from finding it, hi. I love Kylo Ren and Rey, and I have never thought that they were related. I love them so much that after Last Jedi, I got them tattooed on my thighs. There's Kylo, sorry, this is difficult. There's Rey. That was very hard to do with a broken toe, by the way. I fully support them being together. I want them to be together, and so getting that Reylo kiss was just the best thing. It was like every fanfic that I've ever read coming to life. Yes, I've read fanfiction on Kylo and Rey. But it's very sad for me to know that we got a kiss and then he did. would love to have seen little Rey Kylo babies. Like, and this is just me, like my personal Reylo obsession. Like, so I feel very happy that throughout this entire trilogy, my infatuation with them being together was solidified and is now canon. Yes, that makes me happy. I feel like I'm not crazy because I never thought they were related. I wanted them to be together, and it's like it validated all of my feelings. Then I was very sad. I wish that they would have just kept him alive. I mean, it makes sense, but it also, yeah, I guess it makes sense. I'm like thinking about it now. Like when Rey healed him after stabbing him, he was not dead, he was dying, and she gave some of her life force. I guess that makes sense. But she was dead, and Kylo gave his life force for hers. So I guess I get it. I get that he died because he gave his life for hers. It's different. Still, makes me very sad. I would love to have seen Ben Solo and Rey have a family and a life together, and I don't get that as a fan. So here's to hoping that like there's like an after story, like a comic or a book that comes out and says that he comes back and I can live vicariously through that. Still happy we got the Reylo kiss. Okay, so Hux. I remember like when the scene happened where they were about to exterminate. I'm like on Doctor Who mindset right now. When they were about to, I guess exterminate is right. Chewbacca, Poe, and Finn, and then Hux shoots the stormtroopers and says, "I am the spy." Like, first of all, that made me laugh so hard. I enjoyed it. I thought it was comical. I thought it was so like, just the way that they did that scene, it was almost like predictable. That like Hux would be like, "I want to kill them myself," and then boom, 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 "I am the spy." Like, very predictable, but I very much enjoyed it. It's nice to see a Weasley back on top for like at least a split second before he's killed. I guess like personally, if I had written it differently, I would have had Hux escape with them. I know that by him saying that little like, "I don't want you to win, I just want Kylo Ren to lose," and I was like, oh, okay. Like, we could have just foregone that line and had Hux escape with them. I felt like that would have been cool, and then even if it had been like Hux double crossing again, like, and I don't know, like I just felt like that would have added more. I would have liked to see Hux last longer than just saving them, claiming he's a spy, and then getting killed. Because I feel like we've seen him in all the films, and like the rivalry between him and Kylo have always been so like enjoyable to watch in my opinion. But I really enjoyed that Hux was the spy. I thought that was clever, and I actually did not see it coming until that scene. So, okay, so now we're gonna discuss the big whammy. Palpatine reveal. So Rey's a Palpatine. Palpatine is back. Like, a lot of information thrown at us, and it's fine. Whereas I'm allowed to have qualms with certain things, overall my experience was a positive one. I personally, from the beginning, have always thought that Rey would end up being a Palpatine. I never thought she was going to be a Skywalker. If she was a Skywalker, technically, kind of, maybe sorta, she would have been related to Ben Solo, and that would have been against my Reylo love. So though I would have been 100% on board with saying that she was a nobody that just developed Force sensitivity and powers, I always thought she was much too strong in the Force to be someone who just didn't have any like history of like family Force users. I mean, in Force Awakens, she's able to get into Kylo's head as he's trying to get into hers. Like, that's a strong power to have. In Last Jedi, she's able to enter the depths and reach into the darkness and comes out unscathed. Like, I mean, there's just like too many scenes that like played out that I was like, no, she has to be related to at least someone of like a Sith background, because there were too many things in like the dark side that she was able to do and then come back to the light. So it felt to me like I always assumed she was going to be like a gray Jedi, which I know is not necessarily canon in the films, but like in the games, like, you can technically be a gray Jedi. When I played Old Republic, I would always keep my character like right on that like mid-spectrum of like dark and light. So I always assumed they were going to go gray with her, since she had all of these abilities to kind of do like a little bit of dark and a little bit of light. But I knew she had to be related to someone, and I always thought that Snoke had something to do with Palpatine, because it just seemed too similar. So this reveal was kind of not a shock for me, because I always have thought this. Like, it didn't really change my perspective. And I know a lot of people are upset because they can't wrap their head around Palpatine and a woman doing it, having a baby, and then him having a granddaughter. Like, even with Palpatine surviving the Death Star's explosion, like, it was never discussed. How did it happen? Well, I don't know. Clearly, if the dark side is able to keep Palpatine alive via this, like, puppeteering robot, and there is some talk of cloning, so, like, how do we not know that this version of Palpatine is not, like, a clone, and it's been around for so long, 30 years, that it's, like, starting to decay? I mean, there are a lot of possibilities, and whereas we are not fed the reasoning, I feel like this is fantasy, and so it leaves open-ended abilities for them to literally make up anything they want, and that's fine. But so far, this is brand new, and so they're just kind of paving the way for it. I do find it very humorous to watch Palpatine being puppeteered, though, by, like, a metal arm. It was very funny. But here's my thing. So we don't know when, where, what with Palpatine had a relationship with that led to a child, that led to that child having a child. But here's the thing. I don't think people should be dwelling on that because as a Harry Potter fan, some of you may or may not know or might not remember or choose not to remember because it is uncomfortable, but Cursed Child is literally based on Voldemort having a child with Bellatrix. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, now you know, that is what Cursed Child is about. It is literally Voldemort having a child with Bellatrix. Delphi is Voldemort's daughter, and she is just as insane and wants to live up to her father's name, and that is the entire premise of Cursed Child. So just as we have experienced this before, this is nothing new to us. Believe me, when I found out that Voldemort had a kid with Bellatrix, I was like, excuse me? When did that happen? Because every time we see Voldemort and Bellatrix on screen, she is like obsessive over him, but he is like very much like, you are a peon, get away from me. And so believe me when I say that we have gone through this confusion. I can't fathom Voldemort. Voldemort, Tom Riddle, hi, have you met him? Have you seen his face? That and Bellatrix, this doesn't make any sense, can't compute, but apparently it happened. And so in that same regard, it happened in Star Wars with Palpatine. I can't be mad at it because we've seen this before. It's the same. Speaking of the same, there were two things that I wanted to point out that were so similar to Endgame, which I thought was like iconic in a way, but also like, oh, I just saw this in Endgame. In one of the final scenes when all of the ships are appearing, like they're jumping out of Lightspeed and you see all the ships in the sky, I was like, oh, this is just like Endgame when like everyone was coming back to fight Thanos. The other scene that was very much like Endgame is when Palpatine says, I am all the Sith. And then Rey goes, and I am all the Jedi. And I was like, cool, so this is I am inevitable, I am Iron Man again. So quickly skirting back to the Palpatine stuff, if you watch these movies the way that they are supposed to, that's a very hard quote, supposed to be watched. I'm saying like episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or if you want to be technical, 1, 2, 3, Solo, Rogue One, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It makes sense. Like you see Palpatine from the literal first movie, and now he's in the last movie. My only issue is that I wish if Palpatine was going to have this big comeback that they would have alluded to him slightly in 7 and 8, because I feel like we see Palpatine in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think he even is in Rogue One slightly. I think he's in Rogue One. I think it's obviously implied that he's in Rogue One because that's like Darth Vader's up and coming. But then we get to 7, 8. And there's no talk of Palpatine. We just think he's dead. And I feel like maybe if they had something in the background or something just kind of slightly, like maybe Rey had her little Force lightning strike earlier on. And then it kind of would have been like, oh, wait. And I understand they wanted the reveal of the Palpatine thing to be at the end, but like little things like that would have sort of it would have alluded that Palpatine was returning, and like I feel like that would have been slightly better for the storyline, especially because we have like all together with the films all together, it makes sense. You have Palpatine from the beginning and it ends with Palpatine. Cool. I understand. I get it. But having 7 and 8 just have a little bit more of that like mystery of it would have been, in my opinion, better. Do I like the Palpatine reveal? Sure. Do I feel like this story is now just a story of Palpatine? Yes. Like, I know they're like, it's the Skywalker Saga, but like, it's all Palpatine, friends. Like, I get like the characters are in there, but it's always Palpatine. He's always lurking in the shadows. Moving on to something that made me very happy. Seeing Ben, after he was healed by Rey, with the death of Kylo having just occurred, him getting that, I don't want to say it was a Force vision because like Han didn't have any Force power, so he wouldn't be a Force ghost, but like just seeing Han on screen for a final time made me so happy. It was such a good scene. Like I felt like it was important for it to be there, just to see like that transition of like, you know, from Force Awakens we had Kylo say to him like, I need help, and like then he killed Han, but in this one he said I need help, and it was because he wanted to be good again, and like he needed Han to accept the apology, I guess. He didn't say I'm sorry, but like he needed that acceptance to feel like he could finally let go, which made me so happy. So I really enjoyed that scene. Something else that made me super happy. Dio is the cutest droid ever. I freaking love him. He's so cute. Like his whole like little backup with like, no thank you. Like when people are gonna touch him. I love him so much. I want every Dio item ever made on the planet. Third thing that I absolutely loved, Babu Frick. Babu Frick is my dude. I love him. He's so cute. I know that everybody has been obsessing over Baby Yoda, and don't get me wrong, he's very cute. I've never been a huge fan of Yoda specifically. There's just something about his look. It's a very E.T.-esque look, which makes sense because they're related, but like I'm not drawn to that character. I've never been drawn to Yoda. I've never wanted a Yoda plushie. I've never wanted a Yoda item, like whatever. So Baby Yoda, whereas yes, I can appreciate that he is cute. I'm not obsessed. Like I don't get that obsession with like people freaking out over Baby Yoda. Like sure, he's cute, but like there are cuter things, and Babu Frick is one of them. I think Babu Frick is so much cuter than Baby Yoda. He just brought me a lot of joy on screen. I liked him a lot. Okay, so let's talk about some other things that were cool, but also like a little bit confusing. So the Force dyad. So I'm glad that we finally got an explanation of why Kylo and Rey were connected. And it was very interesting to see that dyad grow over the films. So like watching back from Force Awakens and then Last Jedi to now, and seeing the transition of the strength of it growing. So like at first where they could just see each other, and then they could see where they were, or they could see kind of where they were. And then like to be able to like literally pull objects through the dyad I thought it was very intriguing, very cool. My only wish is that we would have had a little bit more of a backstory with it. Because I feel like we have Palpatine say like, I haven't seen a Force dyad in years, but like, cool. Who else had one? Like there's information that I would have liked to have known, just to know. But I thought that concept was really cool, and I'm glad they finally gave a name as to why. Something that actually I just thought about right now that never got explained. Can other Force users see the dyad? Because that must be, because Palpatine said he could see their dyad. And in Last Jedi, when Rey is sitting in the hut and her and Kylo are about to touch hands, Luke walks in and says, no, and like must see the dyad. So like no one else can see it, I'm assuming, but Force users can see it, right? That makes sense. That has to be. It has to be. So Sith Rey, like that very quick scene with Sith Rey, I thought that was so cool, and I wish they would have expanded on it, because I loved seeing that little like clip in the trailer when it came out. Like it got me excited, and I immediately was like, she's not turning Sith. This is definitely like her fighting like her Sith version of herself. Like Luke had to fight himself, she's fighting herself. I get it, but it was so quick, and like I kind of wish they would have just drawn it out a little bit more, because just seeing her flip that lightsaber open, and then like the initial kind of like, oh, here we go, it's a lightsaber fight, so I'm like, cool, we're gonna get to see this, and then within a second, she like growled and her teeth were spiky, and then it was over. And then Kylo was there, which is fine. But like, I kind of would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that scene, because I think the concept was cool. She looked awesome. It's 100% gonna spur a lot of cosplays, even though it's like a second long. I wish they would have expanded a little bit more on that, because it literally built up from the beginning of the film with like her like beating that like training droid, dropping a tree on BB-8. When she gets inside the ship after thinking she killed Chewbacca, and she's just like super furious, like there's just like scenes that kind of led up. So like I would have liked to see that expanded on a little bit more. Speaking of Chewbacca, that scene when the Force lightning shoots out of her hand, it just like solidified for me like everything that I'd already thought. So I'm sitting there in the theater. As soon as the lightning hit the cruiser, I was just like, like I did the biggest gasp, and I'm like, oh no, Chewbacca. And I was just like, wait, but Rey, but Chewbacca, what's happening? Was a little confusing that like that wasn't the transport that had Chewbacca on it, because I didn't see another transport. At least I don't think there's a scene that you see another transport. So, I mean, I get why they did it. It was like that shock factor. You got me. I was shocked. I gasped. But, that was a little confusing. Okay, so Commander Poe and Finn. So I knew this was coming. I knew that they were gonna have to figure out a way of having Carrie Fisher exit the film. Definitely a hard scene to film, because you kind of need Carrie Fisher to be in the scene to exit the film. And I don't necessarily think that it was initially planned. I think with her actual real life death, it had to change a little bit, because that scene felt a little weird. Obviously they had scenes with Carrie in it from previous filmings, and then they get to that moment where they have to figure out what they're gonna do. And so the scene where General Leia goes to lie down and essentially die, we never see her face. So that clearly was not Carrie Fisher, obviously. I felt like they did the scene the best that they could. I didn't understand why she was dying. Like when they said she knows what she has to do to see her son and it's gonna kill her, and that confused me a little bit. Like I get that she was reaching out to Kylo so that he would become Ben again, but I don't know how that would have taken all of her. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm a little confused. Like I get the concept of what they were trying to do, but I'm just a little bit confused about like the actual execution of it. That being said, I still enjoyed every moment that Carrie Fisher was on screen. It made me so happy, and they had to do what they had to do to like get her to exit the film. So I understand why they did what they did. Very cool though that we get to see her lightsaber. That was cool in the little flashback. I'm not even gonna get into the CGI, because even the CGI from Rogue One was like weird to me, but like it was cool to see her, training to be a Jedi. That was really cool. Her son died anyway, though. Like for her to stop her Jedi training, because she's like, it'll lead to the inevitable death of her son. I'm like, well, I mean, he already died though. So, anyway, so back to Commander Poe and Finn. So when they put Poe in position, I noticed a lot of people were complaining about the back and forth of the battle scene when they finally arrive, and it's just full of just the Star Destroyers like ready to go. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Sorry guys. I'm sorry guys. Like, first of all, what did you expect? You put Poe in charge. Like Poe, the guy who like literally defected during like a mission in the previous movie. Poe, who has always been a little bit trigger happy. Poe, who truly has never really known what he's doing the entire time. So that was a weird choice. But then when Poe said, I can't do this without you, Finn, it made sense, because I felt like Poe is trigger happy, Finn is very like protective, and so them being commander general together made sense to me. I wish, I'm getting off on tangents now, but I also wish that we would have just seen a little bit more of the Force sensitivity from Finn earlier on in the film. We don't get it till that final battle scene, and that makes me sad, because I would have liked to seen it. Also, the whole like, Rey, I never told you thing, like, and then Poe asking twice and Rey asking once. I still, like, personally don't know if he was going to say, I'm Force sensitive, or I love you. I know that J.J. Abrams came out and said, oh, he was going to tell Rey he was Force sensitive, but like, that doesn't make sense. Like, if you think you're about to die, you're not gonna be like, Rey, I'm Force sensitive. Like, what? No, you're gonna say, Rey, I've always loved you. So that was a little bizarre. Anyway, okay. So yes, what I'm saying is I liked when it was General Poe and Finn together. I didn't like when it was just General Poe, because Poe has never been really one of my favorite characters. He's very like impulsive, and it's just a lot to handle as a character. His backstory too, like I thought meeting Kerry Russell's character as like Poe's ex-girlfriend was interesting, but like also it didn't really add anything to the story, so I think I would have liked to have seen more of Rose in the film. Okay, so what else? So we're almost at the end of my list, you guys. So I think the overall thing that I want to discuss finally is Kylo Ren / Ben Solo's full transition. Like I liked watching the journey from him, like meeting him as Kylo Ren, this horrific like leader of the First Order who does these terrible things, to watching him transition into someone who recognizes his faults and wants to change, to eventually changing and becoming one with the light side again. And that made me so happy. Like his entire storyline from Force Awakens to Last Jedi to now, just it did feel complete, whereas I wish that he would not have died. Very interesting to see his story dynamic versus Anakin Skywalker, because Anakin fell to the dark side, started as a Jedi, fell to the dark side because he wanted to save those he loved. Like ultimately he did what he needed to do because Sidious explained to him that in order to save your dying wife, you need to turn to the dark side. So he did it out of fear because he wanted to save those he loved. And I thought it was interesting that like Kylo, training to be a Jedi, moves to the dark side, realistically not his own faults of falling to the dark side. There was that whole thing with Luke and like waking up with Luke over him with his lightsaber drawn. Becomes evil, does all of these horrible things, like things that Darth Vader did, worse than Darth Vader, and then starts to realize through meeting Rey and the Force dyad and just like having like these like struggles internally, like realizes that it's not who he wants to be. And so I really enjoyed watching that transition back to light. And I think my favorite part is that Anakin, or Darth Vader, fell to the dark side because he wanted to save those he loved. And ultimately, at his death, sacrificed himself. It was a very similar story with Kylo. Kylo actually fulfilled that prophetic statement, I don't know what I'm trying to say, of I don't want my loved ones to die. Like he was able to transition from dark to light, force heal Rey, and bring her back to life. In doing so, sacrificed himself, but like he fulfilled Darth Vader's / Anakin's, you know what I mean? Like it makes me happy because like literally like Anakin fell to the dark because he wanted to save those he loved, and Kylo was able to return to the light because he saved the ones he loved, sacrificed himself. And I feel like that's very poetic. Like it's a very like nice transition from like first set trilogy, I'm not talking about four, I'm talking about in chronological order, first set trilogy to, you know, the middle, and then now. Like we see that transition with, you know, grandson and grandfather, and it was just, I liked it. Like I liked it a lot. It was very touching. So anyway, let me wrap this up because this is a very long video, but overall, listen, I understand everyone has their opinion on this film, and everyone has a very specific way of how they wanted it to go based on their biases and their likes and their dislikes, and no one is ever going to be 100% happy with a film, especially when it's the film wrapping up a friggin' saga. You know what I mean? But like, I enjoyed it for what it is. I am not going to sit here and say that like I love every aspect of the film because it is Star Wars and Star Wars is God and like I just love everything about it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I can enjoy the film for what it is because it was a good film. It was enjoyable. Yes, there were some things that I would have done differently. Yes, there were some things that were a little bit weird, but I still liked it. And I'm never going to discount that film for what it is. I'm never going to say this was a terrible film, I'll never watch it, it's not part of the Star Wars universe. I genuinely enjoyed it. I felt like it was a good film to wrap up the saga. I feel like, yes, there was a lot of bantering to fans, like kind of giving them what they want. What with like Reylo, like I got what I wanted, I'm happy. On the same line, how else were you going to wrap it up? I mean, they wrapped up a lot of loose ends in Last Jedi. So truly, what they did in this film was, I think, the only direction they saw to go that would not leave it open-ended, because this was supposed to wrap up the entire Skywalker saga. So they couldn't put anything in the film that would leave it slightly open-ended without people being upset, because then they're like, well, what's gonna happen? Is there a book coming out? Is there like a comic, another game, another movie? I'm happy with it. Yeah, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. If this is the first video that you're seeing of mine, hi, I'm Kayleigh. You should consider subscribing. I make a ton of different content on my channel. You're bound to find something you'll like. Links to my Instagram and my Twitter, my Etsy shops, everything else right down below. I'll see you guys in a few days with another video. Bye, everybody.